Supervisors special meeting. Would you please rise for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Vice Chairman, Mr. Moses.
Here.
Supervisor, Mr. Law.
Here.
Secretary, Mrs. Rummel. Here. Township Manager, Zoning Officer, Mr. Barron.
Here.
Solicitor, Mr. Snyder.
Our first item of business is under new business, and we will be having two hearings this evening. The first hearing is for the zoning ordinance, and I'm going to ask everyone that would like to make a public comment during those hearings to please come up to the microphone, state your name, address for the record, and then we're going to try to limit the comments to 3 minutes. The hearing will come to order, and we'll go ahead and have roll call from our secretary, please.
Chairman, Mr. Fuller.
Here.
Vice Chairman, Mr. Moses.
Here.
Supervisor, Mr. Law.
Here.
Township Manager, Zoning Officer, Mr. Barron.
Here.
Solicitor, Mr. Snyder.
Here.
The purpose of the hearing this evening is to consider for adoption ordinance number 03-13, entitled An Ordinance of the Township of Robinson, Washington County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 27 of the Township Code by amending the zoning ordinance of Robinson Township to provide for a comprehensive rezoning of the township. If there's anybody that's going to be giving public comments this evening, at this time I'm going to have the court reporter swear you in. So if you'd like to stand and raise your hand, please.
Anyone intending to testify tonight, do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
At this time, I'm going to have the exhibits entered into the record by the solicitor.
The exhibits that are going to be presented this evening both apply for this hearing as well as the next hearing for the zoning map. Exhibit number 1 is the copy of the zoning ordinance which was adopted in 1983 of January. The second is the codification of the ordinances which was codified in September of 1985. The third exhibit is the public notice and the passing of the comprehensive plan which was done on May 14th of 2012. In addition, there's a copy of the comprehensive plan attached to that. Exhibit number 4 is the new proposed zoning ordinance. Exhibit number 5 is a copy of the new amended proposed zoning map. Exhibit number 6, several letters of interest from residents and concerned citizens, one of which being from Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney, the Township of Findlay, Schneider, attorney at law, Imperial Land Corporation, one being October 25th, the other being December 18th. A letter from Quentin Jones, a letter from James and Deborah Watson, a letter from Roger Kendall dated November 21st, and another letter from Roger Kendall also dated November 21st. A letter from David Foley, a letter from Thomas Bigger, a letter from Frank Malardi, letter from John Donaldson, letter from Marie Bigger, a letter from Mark and Judy Kramer, a letter from Tim Jones, That was dated November 22nd, and another letter dated November 22nd, again from Tim Jones. Letter from Mark and Alice Permagini. Letter from David, Janice, Caitlin, and Travis Duran. A letter from Max Environmental. A letter from John Campbell. Exhibit number 7 is a proof of publications advertising this public hearing and meeting through the Observer Reporter. And exhibit number 8 is a list of the postings and pictures of the postings that were done advertising this notice throughout the township. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Next item on the agenda would be board comments. Do either one of the other supervisors have any comments they'd like to make? If not, Mr. Behrens, I did ask you to look into the question that came up at the last hearing regarding the tax assessments and the rezoning and the effect of the rezoning that happened.
I did notify the Washington County Tax Assessment Office, spoke with Deborah Bardella, who confirmed that the only time your taxes are increased or decreased is if there's a use change or an upgrade to the property in itself, not when there's a zoning change or anything of that nature by any municipality within the county of Washington.
So there would be no tax changes just for a map or zoning ordinance change.
That's correct.
If there's nothing else from the board, we'll go right to public comments, and I would ask that you raise your hand when you're called on, come to the microphone, and state your name for the record, please. Anybody?
Down here. Greg Holdenicki. I feel like an MC. Okay. Spell the last name. Kobulnicky, 9646 Steubenville Park. At the first hearings for this, I mentioned that what was not included as a permitted principal use or a special exception for the interchange business development district was restaurant, and it just seems to me that that would be something you would want to include for the IBD. I talked with Supervisor Coppola several times, and I noticed that change had not been made. And it kind of brings another point that I thought of as well, as far as development goes and attracting various tenants. I understand your one of the goals is to increase the tax base of the township. One thing when you're looking at the development of these interchanges off of the Southern Beltway and oil and gas stations, you know, a lot of those gas stations now, like Sheetz and Get-Go, have restaurant components to them. And so it seems to me that that would discourage one of the things that you're trying to attempt to encourage, which would be gas station convenience store. And I just don't know why restaurant was not added to that, and that seems like a logical thing to include. And no zoning ordinance is perfect, but if we can't include these little things that seem very obvious, maybe it's time to slow the process down. Thank you.
My name is George Lucchino, 399 Beagle Club Road. I served 11 years on the Planning Commission. I also served 3 6-year terms as Township Supervisor. I had 2 major concerns about the change of any of our zoning. First, Gas drilling has been changed from a conditional use permit to the zoning hearing board special section. For years, coal removal and gas drilling always fell under the conditional use permit process, and this process always worked. By keeping gas drilling under the conditional use process, this gives residents an opportunity to have a hearing with the planning commission. Then you will have to get more input and information. This gives the planning commission time to review, and then they send their recommendations to the board of supervisors. Then the supervisors have time to hear additional information before making a decision. So I believe we should return to the R1 and R2 zoning districts. And the R1 and R2 zoning districts should be permitted for natural gas drilling under conditional use permit. Frac ponds, compressor stations should be allowed in the I area as a special exceptions. All residential areas should be same as with the coal removal. No drilling. Special exception is for small areas and not for the whole township. Since Act 13 gave back the powers to the township, this would be a good time to work with the gas industry and the residents to find some common ground. Okay. My second concern are as following. Number one, we have the Cook landfill by the Robinson School. That was not identified on the map. 1970, the Cook landfill was trying to expand to accept waste from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It has been taking all types of material when it was a dump site. Number two, Pitt Metals. It's now Remax out here on 980. They have a lagoon on the site. Now there's a parking lot, they have monitoring wells. Number three, the Cinco waste site. You made this like, I think, a business park, and it was listed, we had it listed prior as conservations. Okay. In 1980, the EPA then had the company install a synthetic cap with monitoring wells. This property cannot be disturbed. So I don't know why you have it down as an industrial park. It still should be listed as that. Then we have the fourth site, which is the Pittsburgh Industrial Waste Site, located off of Camden Road. When I was a member of the Board of Supervisors, a resident came to my house, and she sat on my front porch and showed me the file from DEP about this dump site and how it was leaking into the creek. Turnpike Commission was also aware of this dump site. If I may, I would like to give you this board a little history. Love Canal, New York. Love Canal, New York is a chemical waste dump, and it was filled up as a large lagoon. Then it was covered over with dirt. Years later, it was turned over to the Board of Education. The town built homes on the property. People got sick. Later on, the federal government had to come in, move out the people, fence off the area, and tear everything down. Pittsburgh Industrial Waste Site was zoned industrial, but it was changed to residential. I do not know how all the parties who were involved in changing this zoning, knowing that it was a dump site. How can you sleep at night? After you've heard all the testimony tonight, Mr. Brosick, Mr. Love, you have a moral and ethical obligation and a responsibility to table this meeting and let the new board revisit the testimony tonight and make the proper adjustments. Thank you.
Yes, John Campbell, 738 Campbell Road, Ulster, Pennsylvania. One of the letters that were submitted by the residents for part of the record, just a reminder of the petition that was put together of the 256 names that did not want any changes. And again, as just was mentioned, to table this action and let the new supervisors take the responsibility to move forward with it. Thank you.
Judy Kramer, Robinson Church Road. Just briefly, I would like to say regarding the special exception and the conditional use application methods, I think that special exceptions should be just that. They should be special, they should be exceptional, and they should be rare. Because if someone comes before the zoning hearing board, in my opinion, the residents no longer have any input in what is being presented. And so therefore, the applicant is either, the application is either accepted or denied. If denied, the applicant then can go to the court system and a judge may rule that yes, their application is acceptable, no it is not, and may never set conditions. And so therefore, I recommend that most applicants come in through the planning commission, the conditional use process, whereby the planning commission hears the proposal, they do the legwork, they consult with land use attorneys, engineers, etc. Then they set conditions and give these recommendations to the supervisor. To sum up, I think the residents are best served by the conditional use process. Thank you.
I have Mr. Smith just address the difference between the conditional use and the special exception.
Ms. Kramer, you're correct. I mean, the way the process works with the conditional use, obviously, you guys have worked with the Planning Commission in the past. There is a process. It's not required to have a planning commission, but we do in Robinson Township. It is a two-step process, sometimes 3 steps for applicants to go the conditional use route. The special exception goes to the zoning hearing board. The special exception, there's a number of reasons why it might be a special exception. Oftentimes, for more industrial uses, oftentimes boards will appoint zoning zoning board members who have more of a specialty to deal with certain things, but the hearing is just the same in terms of public participation. They get to come before the zoning hearing board, offer evidence, offer testimony, because while the planning commission is somewhat informal, that is the process, that somebody would come before the board would then be allowed to offer conditions on that conditional use, and then that would be sent to the board of supervisors. The board of supervisors does not have to accept those conditions, but they're a good guidance document. And it lengthens the process to some extent, and sometimes it warrants a longer process. The special exception, of course, the individuals on the zoning hearing board have the ability also to authorize conditions upon approval. They can deny, and the recourse denial of both is to the same place as the Court of Common Pleas. So essentially, it's a faster process to some extent to go to the zoning hearing board. Sometimes, again, you can appoint people that have somewhat more of a distinct specialty that you may want to have them hear certain things. You see a lot of engineers, a lot of people that work in construction that may not be elected officials, but that have the requisite knowledge that will sit on those boards that may be better able to hear those particular applications. So there are some differences and some similarities. The main one in this instance is which board it goes to and the lack of a planning commission recommendation body. But you do have public participation in hearings of both. She may not be able to get, Kim may not be able to get.
Just, you can come back on if you want, but I just wanted to add that one of the complaints that we've had from the gas companies, from a lot of the leaseholders, is the process takes too long. And we've had hearings go on before the Board of Supervisors for months. We've been able to do some one night. But when you have that planning commission process and then the Board of Supervisors, that could go on theoretically for a year or longer. And it makes it very difficult. We did have a lot of concerns from some of the gas companies about how long some of these things would take. So the zoning hearing board is a streamlined process. The people can still come in, they're still in hearing, they can still express their concerns. And if I'm not mistaken, the Board of Supervisors really have standing if they don't make the decision to go ahead and challenge it too.
They do, and the board can also participate at the special exception process. They can be advocates for or against, or oftentimes they may take no position, just leave it to the zoning hearing board to decide. Ms. Kramer, do you want to come down just because of the court report, right? There's such a noise in the background for her.
And is it your recommendation that people who do serve on the zoning hearing board have some expertise?
Well, what they have to have is experience. They have to have some experience in different trades. We have so many uses in the township, it's hard to say we're going to pick a zoning hearing board that has familiarity with high-rises or with construction details. But it's just one of those methodologies that you can at least even have applicants get good at it in terms of you may see multiple applications go to the same board, where planning sometimes turns over, and zoning turns over as well, so do the supervisors. And there are arguments pro and con in terms of why give it to the zoning hearing board, why give it to the Board of Supervisors. With the Board of Supervisors, to talk to some of the companies, and because I don't think they're against the planning commission process, but they would have arguably, a scheduled hearing. It could be multiple hearings, but it won't be hearing before two boards. It'll be hearing before one board that makes a decision.
Does the zoning hearing board then have access to expertise such as land use attorneys?
Yeah, well, they have their own
engineers?
solicitor, and they can call, each side typically can call their own witnesses. They have the power to subpoena under the MPC. Unlikely, and I've seen it happen maybe once, where they can call their own, put maybe master or call upon an expert that they want to draw upon. But remember, they're a quasi-judicial board. They're basically a judge. So they're looking to have themselves educated by the applicant and listen to the citizen comments. But they
You
take
can understand my concern that the zoning hearing board should have some type of expertise.
Well, keep in mind they have the same engineer. The zoning hearing board uses the same engineer as the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. So the system is exactly the same. The other thing that we looked at when making it the special exception was with the Board of Supervisors, you have 3 supervisors. You can't have any alternates. And with the amount of people that we have in the township that have leases or that have potential conflicts, if one supervisor had to recuse themselves, and then you had 2 left, one voted yes, one voted no, what kind of position does that put the township in? With the zoning hearing board, you can have the 3 members and 3 alternates. So if there's a conflict, the alternate can step in.
My only concern there is that the zoning hearing board is an appointed board.
They have staggered terms. I can't recall, maybe 3 years.
And keep in mind that the Board of Supervisors would be a party too. So if they didn't like the decision, the Board of Supervisors can also appeal that decision.
For or against. I mean,
For or against.
there are cases where the township has sued the zoning hearing board of the township. And there are cases, we just had one in Cecil, where the township supported the zoning hearing board on appeal on a matter. So they're not out in the cold, it's just more of a streamlined process. Really, as the chairman pointed out, negate potential conflicts. You have a small township, so conflicts may arise, and at least you have potential alternates. I'm not sure how many alternates the board has now. And they do have experience in handling certain matters. I know Harlan Stone, I believe, is their solicitor. Harlan represents a number of municipalities as well, has a lot of land use background, and of course they rely upon their attorney a lot as well.
Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Catney. I'm 283 Catney Lane, Balger, PA. I'm speaking on behalf of the Catney family. Just wanted to say that we are opposed to the change in the zoning. C-A-T-A-N-E-Y.
Mark Kramer, 238 Robinson Church Road. First off, I'd like to thank the board for entertaining my request to change my zoning from the business back to R1. I noticed that you did that on the map, and I thank you for that. Second question is that I was aware that thought Foley was going to be here, but did we really need 4 armed police officers? Because he's getting a little bit older now. I don't think he's going to cause that much trouble. My concern is, zoning is for pre-planning, and zoning directs the direction the township is going to go. And I'm reminded back when I was a child, my uncle, Mike Duran, once told me when he saw all his neighbors' farms being turned into housing developments, he said, there's going to be a time when you're going to want to plow up that blacktop, and if people keep selling farms for housing developments, there will be a time when you're going to pay $1 for a drink of water. And I laughed at Mike, oh, you're crazy, old Uncle Mike. And look on that table. I think he was right. My concern is, do we want our township to mirror Findlay Township? Do we want to go the direction of North Fayette Township? I know that's when, 6 years ago, when Brian, you came in, you said these townships were mocking us because we're just so backward. I can go out my driveway, I can turn left, and I can be in as many malls, used malls, abandoned malls in 15 minutes as I want. I don't want Findlay Township's garbage dump to encroach into Robson Township. The airport is close enough to me. So what do we want to go? Which direction do we want to go as a township? And it seems to me that had this planning been, your intention all along, why do you wait to the last minute to do it? There have been too many contracts signed, too many people appointed, that this planning here will go beyond your tenure, Brian. So it seems to me like you're setting up like a lame duck dynasty here that's going to live on beyond you. So I think I would encourage the other 2 board members to put this on hold, as has been repeated before, so that we can really have this township go the direction we want it to really go. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to just state for the record that this has been 5 years for me. And we have a planning commission. Most of those planning commission members were here before I got here. And they worked on a comprehensive plan for years. So there's nothing new in this ordinance. When people get up and say, why are we doing this at the last minute? This is years. And this is a mirror of our comprehensive plan, which had to really be finished before this. What I hope does not happen in this township is we do not have a lot of those housing plans. And when we hired the planner, that's one of the things that we discussed. He said, in order to have a good tax base in the township, we needed some sort of an interchange business development. It was fairly low density, business park type of development that didn't place a great tax burden on the residents, but contributed to the tax base in the township. With the turnpike coming through, that was the perfect marriage of the interchange business development and the highway. And we were very careful to limit certain things. And Mr. Polvenicky got up and mentioned restaurants, for instance. Restaurants are allowed with hotels, motels. They're allowed as accessory uses, so if somebody did put a service station in, I'm sure that would be allowed as an accessory use. But we did not want some of this uncontrolled development like you see in some of the neighboring townships, where everything is so cluttered you can't tell what you're looking at when you're going down the road. I think Findlay Township is a good example of a community that was developed properly. It's very clean, it's spaced well, it doesn't infringe on the residential development in the township. My personal feeling is that we took on this responsibility. I took on this responsibility 6 years ago. The zoning was my primary concern when I came into office. And it's our responsibility to finish it. If the supervisors elect decide they want to change something in the future, that's their prerogative. But if we leave this undone and it doesn't get done, and the turnpike comes through and we end up with some hodgepodge development that hurts the township down the road, who's going to have the fingers pointed at? It's going to be this board for not finishing what we started. So I respect your opinion, and we looked at all those issues when we did the zoning and we did the comprehensive plan. I agree with you. I do not want these housing plans placing some sort of a burden on the township. But good commercial development is what we're going to need for the future tax base in this township.
I agree with the commercial development part, but if you look at the map on the left, we did a comprehensive plan for that map. The map on the right does look like a hodgepodge to me. It looks like the dog's breakfast to me. If you look at that blue streak going down to the middle, that's business development. What kind of business development? I understand that Imperial Land owns the majority of that blue, but why can't Imperial Land come in and say, this is the business we want to put in, this is the approved business, that then change the zoning business by business, not just give them a carte blanche, put whatever business you want all the way down there. Well, that's what you're giving them. You're giving them free rein. And we gave them free rein in the past with the coal, and you see what happened to that. There's still business parked right on 980 that the tech world is supposed to call, that for sale signs start to rot and fall away. I say let them come before the board, show you some concrete proposals that they're going to use and they're going to build, actually do. I think they did one, Golden Triangle, and then approve it then. Don't just say, we're going to change this whole, divide the township completely up by business, and then just let them come in and do what they want.
Well, really, that's the way zoning works, kind of the way you describe it. Because everybody would have a zoning change in the township under the new map. The use doesn't change until that property owner changes the use. And any that changes is the zoning. They can continue to use that property as residential property, whatever it's being used for right now, they can continue to use that indefinitely. Nothing changes there. But if you don't plan, and that was the idea behind the comprehensive plan, everything is based on the comprehensive plan. If you don't plan for growth in the township, what you end up with is growth in areas that you may not want, or it may infringe on the residential area of the township. Mr. Lucchino brought up some really good points about past areas that things were done. And all those areas came up in our planning. And what we were told by our past solicitor, our present solicitor, and the planner is this: we can't zone according to something that may have been done in a certain area, because what we would be doing essentially is condemning somebody's property. And the township would be held liable. It's not that we're disagreeing with those opinions or agree with them necessarily, but we have to follow the kind of the letter of the law. And the comprehensive plan set out that plan for us to follow. You know, the time you have been involved in the comprehensive plan is 5 years ago. There's really no change. And in your case, for example, with your residential property, it was a very easy change to take some of the properties that were in interchange business development and change them back to what they were. Because if in the future you ever decided that you wanted to move because it was developing around you, it's a simple process to go back to the comprehensive plan and say, this is what it was planned for. I'd like you to change it back to interchange plan. Very simple. It's much more difficult for us, and we've got some letters that have asked us to expand the business interchange development. Finley Township sent us a letter saying that they want that interchange business development expanded all the way over to Washington Road. Well, that may happen in the future. That may be the way that area goes, but see, it's not in our comprehensive. And there are other areas down along Overstown Road that we've been asked to make those interchange business development. That may be a very logical thing to do, but it's not part of the comprehensive plan. And it's something that our future board is going to have to look at. They may have to change those things. But right now, all we're doing is following the plan. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, but just my only objection is, what direction does this plan take us? Thank you.